Hi, and welcome to the Deer IQ podcast, where smart hunting begins. I'm Adam Lewis, and on this episode, we're starting a new series, The Legacy of Great Deer Hunters. This series will tackle some topics that need to be discussed among hunters, and I feel the future of hunting depends on. They're that important. This conversation is with guest Dr. Jimmy Seitz, and I think you'll be challenged and inspired by his ideas about deer stewardship and our crucial path forward as hunters. And if you want to get the most out of this podcast, download the free journal to use with it. That's really going to help. Okay, so here are your top look-fors or things to look for during this episode. What is Jimmy's view on stewardship, and how is it different than conservation? Where are we losing the battle as deer and hunting stewards? And what is this vital 80% he talks about? What does Jimmy think it takes to be a great hunter, and how does he say we need to handle our influence, especially when in the spotlight or an influencer? Why has Jimmy never entered an animal in the record book, and what is important to remember about the true reason record books were even started? Now, Dr. Seitz has some strong words on where we need to go with hunting and being stewards, and he's also a pastor and not afraid to talk about his faith. So I encourage you to keep an open mind on this very relevant and important topic. Okay, and now let's get to the podcast and up your deer IQ. All right, I'm here with Dr. Jimmy Seitz. Jimmy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Adam. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to have you on. And our listeners probably know you. They might not, but you are a man of many, many hats. I'll try to list a few that I can remember here. You're an author. You're a songwriter. You are a speaker, a national speaker. You have a very popular television show. Did I miss anything there?
Oh, a husband and a dad. That's the best dog owner.
Right. So in this series, we're really looking at the topic of stewardship and how great hunters handle their influence and build a legacy. And that's what we're going to try to focus on today. But there's a lot to tell, I think. This is very interesting with you and your story. So could you take a few minutes, Jimmy, and just kind of tell us more than I did about what you do and I guess kind of how you got to this point. I think that's pretty interesting and people will appreciate that. So could you kind of fill us in a little more on some of those details?
Well, sure. First of all, I was born into a family that loved the outdoors. My father, Carol Seitz, and my mom, Sarah, loved to fish. My dad loved to quail hunt. And so I began fishing and quail hunting before I could walk, basically. And my dad would carry me on his shoulders, and it was really a lot of fun. So I grew up loving the outdoors. I got into deer hunting when I was about 10 to 12. I began reading books on it and, of course, watched Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. And I really enjoyed, Marlon Perkins. And so I remember getting my first deer when I was 12, and man, it was like I got the bug. And so between that and bass fishing and duck hunting and squirrel hunting and trapping and everything else, I grew up in the outdoors as I was playing sports and going to school, all the way through college and got married, and then all the way through a doctorate. I just kept hunting and fishing. And I became a minister, and my doctorate was in preaching. And I actually taught seminary and university levels and preached at a big megachurch and had a big staff and had the Suit and Tie TV show. And I just felt like I was always preaching to the choir. Like the people that I was reaching were already saved. They had already heard about God and, about salvation. And so one day in a deer stand in Texas, it was the year 1992, I believe. I feel like I got a download straight from God to do an outdoor television show that would weave in a spiritual message, and that would get me into the home of people who don't go to church, and specifically men who don't go to church, or maybe who have not had a good experience with God. And that's the way to get into their home. And so I played with the idea for about 8 years, but I didn't really follow up on it. I had a lot of other stuff going on, and actually even did another TV show called Camping America during that time that was a talk show. So finally, around the year 2001, I really began to get serious about this. And I stepped down from preaching at a very large church and began Spiritual Outdoor Adventures. And we got on the air locally on ABC in Nashville in October of 2002. The man that came and did the grand opening for us is named Phil Robertson, and he's got a big movie coming out on his life here in just a couple of months. And that was his first big public speaking engagement. And that's what launched Spiritual Outdoor Adventures. And it has grown over the last 22 years to where now you can watch us anywhere except China. And it's been quite a ride, just pretty amazing. So we're very thankful, and when I say we, I'm talking about me and my family, and also my team of volunteers, as well as a really great staff, that God has grown this thing to the point that He has. And we're full of the best sponsors, and we've had a great run. And from the looking at it from a secular viewpoint, the show has won a lot of awards, and we're grateful for that. It's got huge ratings. 1 or 2 years, it's actually won the ratings for the outdoor shows. But that's not why we do it, and that's really not what is most important to us. What's most important to us is how many people's lives do we change for the better by introducing them to God and to having a relationship with Him. And we've heard literally thousands of stories or met thousands of people that we have seen personally whose lives have been changed by the message that comes straight out of the Word of God. We just simply use hunting and fishing as the vehicle to present the message. And what's very unique is that during the time of 22 years of utilizing and using that vehicle, I have learned so much about hunting and fishing and being around the best people in the world that do it. I learned from them. I've learned from experience because I've had to spend so much time in the outdoors. And because of that, it's been like, several major college and master's and doctorate courses just crashed in 22 years about different things. And so from that,
Yeah,
now our well is
I bet.
full, and we're able to share with others through books and TV shows and through podcasts and whatever. So I try to share of my experiences and the things that I've learned and am continuing to learn. And I have a lot to learn still. So that's pretty much what brings us to this point right now, and including getting to meet you at a producer's camp that you
Yeah,
came
that's,
to.
yeah. Are you guys still running those?
No, we haven't done one in about 4 to 5 years. It's they just our schedule got so big and so full that we had to start trimming some things that we
Yeah, I
actually
bet.
loved very much, but it was just becoming too demanding, and we didn't have a big enough staff or budget to run everything that we were doing. And as the television show grew and the ratings and the viewers grew, we had more. Not only did we have more income, we had more outgo. And so, as the platform grows and as success happens, so does responsibility. So we had to be good stewards of our time and
Right.
trim the things that were good to do the things that were best, I guess is what you would say.
Yeah, that's a lesson in itself, I think, right there. Just to back up a little bit, that's quite a story, and there's so many things within those 20 some years since you started Spiritual Outdoor Adventures. But did you say the first episode was with Phil Robertson?
Yeah, it was called Secret Ambition. We had Phil Robertson, Michael W. Smith, Jace Robertson, and Coach Jeff Fisher, who at the time coached the Tennessee Titans. And we did a 2-day duck hunt and never fired a shot. It was pretty crazy.
That is funny. Um, and so you've been all around the world. People that maybe know your show, like you've been all around the world, hunting and fishing and doing all this stuff. And I think it's interesting that you say and just I guess immersing yourself in this has taught you a ton. And also that even though people would probably consider you, and I've tried to get people on the podcast that I think people would consider great hunters. It's interesting that you're saying, well, I've got a lot to learn yet, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which is, I would say, is probably a trait of good hunters, is that they know they have things to learn. But let's get into talking about stewardship. I know that's something important in your life. So to you, just to kind of define it here, I think people, hear conservation, the word conservation a lot. stewardship has kind of got into the deer hunting realm, I'd say, the last decade or so. I started hearing it, I think. But for you, what does stewardship mean to you in life in general, but also as hunting? And how does this compare to maybe the word conservation? Do you make a distinction? What does stewardship look like and mean to you?
Because of the lenses that I was given as I was raised by a very godly father who preached, who also was a colonel, and gave, I think it was 32 years of his life to the military, and 42, sorry, and 52 years preaching. Naturally, when I hear stewardship, I think of biblical stewardship, and by that, God expects us to be good stewards of the things that He gives us. They belong to Him, and we're supposed to take care of them. And so, when I walk my woods here around the house, I thank God on my prayer walk every morning with my dogs, and just say, these woods are yours, and I just thank you for allowing me to be the steward of these woods for a period of time in my life. Help me to do a good job. When I come back to our lodge, it's a log lodge, and we live in it as well as work out of it. And our whole walkout basement is the big office for everybody. And I just say, Lord, this is your place. You're the one that provided it. You own it. We get to be the stewards of it. So help us to take care of it well and share it with others and do the things with it that you want us to do. I believe that's the same with everything that we have and do in life, including our own bodies and our health. And so when I think of stewardship, I think of a holistic lifestyle of everything that I touch, everything that I am belongs to God. And so I want to be a good steward of it. That gives me great motivation for taking care of my body. I'm 61 years old now, and I get up and have a routine every morning for an hour, and I work out really hard because I want to be in the best shape that I possibly can at my age, and I want to offer a strong body to what it is that I do for God and for my wife and for my grandkids and kids and for my work and for hunting and fishing. I still want to be able to climb mountains and go mountain goat hunting and all of that, and as long as I possibly can. I think that's being a good steward of my body. I need to do the same with my finances. And I believe the Bible teaches tithing. And so we always make sure that we do at least a 10% of income goes back to God's kingdom and kingdom causes in the church and in ministry. And I believe that everyone should do that if you're a God follower. And yet statistics show that less than 2% is given by people who claim to be Christians. So as I'm looking at how I feel I'm supposed to live from what the Bible says, I just take that same template and I stamp it right onto what people would call conservation of the renewable resources that God has created in this world, whether it's the woods, a food plot, the animal kingdom, the wild animals, fisheries, the birds of the air, the prairie pothole region, all of this, the national parks, everything. It's all about conserving the renewable resources. And in so doing, we have to make sure that we're doing it with a wise plan. And so naturally to say, oh, don't kill animals, that's not a wise plan. That's as stupid as a rock, because what's going to happen if we don't take care of the herds and the flocks and the fisheries with some harvest.
Right.
And so it's that cycle of life. And so I am very much a steward of the land and the sea and the air. I am a conservationist in every single way. And so I see those working hand in hand. They're tandem. I don't separate them personally.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. Really got me thinking there. I think. Well, let me ask you this: a follow up to that. So you look at stewardship from a biblical perspective, obviously, and the idea. I think some people, and I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but this is the feeling I get. Some people. And really, if you look up the definition of conservation in our country, it's that wildlife belongs to the people. And that sounds good, but I think the twist that you put on it when we talk about stewardship is it doesn't belong to the people, it belongs to the Creator, right? And we're just here for a short time taking care of it. How do you think we're doing in general as a population, as hunters with that? And do you think if we made that slight distinction, do you think that would make a difference?
We're getting into a subject that's going to be divided up into three main areas, I believe, and it's going to be 10%, 80%, and 10%. And let me answer it first of all, before I get to the 10, 80, 10, by pointing to developers. In my area of Nashville, Tennessee, we have 150 people a day moving in. They're coming from all over the place, the big cities, from California, from LA, from New York, Chicago, and they're bringing their own concept and rhetoric with them and their own politics. And sometimes that doesn't mix well with the good old boy Southern hospitable genre of Nashville, Tennessee. And and the developers are seeing the money sign as these people are coming in. And so we've got these guys that have grown up around here and they know all these beautiful farms exist. And as the people die and the farms get, handed down to their children, well, the children are approached by these developers and offered millions of dollars. Well, what person in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, are going to turn down millions of dollars? Like, yeah, okay, we'll sell the family farm and get us a nice little spot down on the beach or whatever we want to do. And so the developers are coming in and they're putting, like, for example, 1,500 houses on a farm within 2 miles of my house that used to be owned by, I believe it was Herb Alpert of the Tijuana Brass. Wow. Well, that's happening all over the place. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in as a conservationist, as someone who believes in the stewardship of the land, because we have a lot of great deer around here, including the world record from 2017 to about, I think, 21, came from within 6 miles of my house. And that was a deer that scored 3, 12, and 5/8 by Stephen. He got it. Well, these developers are just wiping out the sanctuaries, and they're putting concrete right on top of the ancestral deer trails, and I'm watching a lot of our habitat go away. And so I come along and say, hey, if we're going to be good stewards of a very fast-growing city such as Nashville, Tennessee, that has a lot of wildlife in and around it, then why don't we make a law? Why don't we, first of all, develop greenways so that if one big farm sells and then the next one to it sells, there has to be a 10% greenway on both farms that connect. And so all of a sudden now, if a farm is 1,000 acres, 100 acres cannot be developed. Now, do you think the developers like that? They would hate my guts because it's going to cost them millions to do that and not develop it. But if we're going to be good planners of cities and lay out all the roads and the sewer systems and everything where it's best for the people, then we should be the same kind of stewards with the outlying lands where the wildlife share existence with us, and we make sure that we provide them areas of sanctuary, areas of travel, and try to connect them together as best as we possibly can in what I would call habitated, wildlife habitated greenways. So I'm really pushing this right now hard. Let me get to that 10, 80,
That's interesting.
and 10.
Yeah. Okay, so here is your high IQ moment. Do you know what the North American model of wildlife conservation is? Why it's been so vital in North America, and where it exactly came from? Well, in the 1800s, many species were on the brink of extinction due to unregulated market hunting and westward expansion. In 1842, a Supreme Court decision changed that course and established what is known as the public trust doctrine, that wildlife could not be owned by government, corporations, or individuals, but that we, the people, were the owners. The North American model of wildlife conservation was born out of this new direction, and regulation agencies were set up as it became clear people needed help to manage this resource. Over time, 7 principles were established, including that wildlife belonged to the people and making it illegal for the commercial sale of wild meat. And yes, the Lacey Acts of 1900 and 1907 helped in this, as they prohibited interstate shipment of wild animals. Although some may argue these laws have been abused over the years, especially recently with some cases, they did allow for both protection and rebound of wildlife to healthy populations and a feasible way to keep them sustainable and available to the common man. Yes, I believe improvements are needed, and this is why it's important to not only be educated about our past, but also get involved wherever we can to both maintain and also improve our hunting future. Something a good steward would do and something to think about. And if you like this podcast, please like, review, or leave a comment depending on where you're listening or watching, and share this with a friend who may benefit. That really helps the podcast and channel grow, and it's greatly appreciated. And do you know your deer IQ? Do you think you're deer smart? Take the deer IQ test that Jimmy also took and see how you do. Then you can compare your score to his, which we'll reveal in the next episode. Okay, and last, I'm currently taking signups for those interested in a few services. First, a whitetail hunting intensive course, which will be a weekend in-depth class diving deep into exactly how to take your hunting knowledge and skills up a notch to become a top-level hunter. And that's with me for a weekend here in Michigan. Second, strategic land and hunting plans, where I would personally evaluate your property and land and give a thorough analysis and suggestions to make it a big buck factory where you can consistently kill mature bucks year after year. And third, public land strategic hunting analysis of where you hunt to get better results hunting pressured public lands. See the forums linked below to inquire about those services, and I'll be in touch. Okay, and now back to the podcast. Yeah.
The 10%, 80%, 10% now is the whole country of the United States of America. And here's the way I believe it kind of falls out. I believe that 10% are people who belong to PETA, people who would be extremely anti-hunting. I believe that on the opposite end of that, there are the 10% of us who are avid hunters. I believe that the 80% are the people in between that don't really care. They're not against hunting, but they don't hunt, and they don't really care to hunt. But they're not against it. So when we are trying to sway someone, I don't think that there's ever any way whatsoever we're going to sway PETA members to believe like we do, or somebody who's so belligerent against hunting that they're willing to do the extreme things that they do and say the extreme things that they say. I don't think we're going to change their mind. And I believe they know the same about us. And so I think their tactic is, let's go after the 80%. And so that right there is where we are losing our battle. And so what we have to do, I think, first and foremost, if we're going to steward hunting and have the future of hunting secure, not only do we need to be able to pass it along to the younger generation, we're going to have to do some very strong education to the 80% who don't hunt and don't really care. We've got to show them how important it is that conservation involves the harvesting of wildlife under the laws of the DNR, which is the Department of Natural Resources, which has a state agency in all 50 states, and it's governed by scientific polls and studies. And we need to make sure we work in conjunction together to preserve the proper nutrition and health, et cetera, and numbers of our wildlife and our fisheries and our flocks.
Yeah, I think a lot of our energies, and when you just take a poll, an observation poll on social media, let's say, a lot of the energies of people go into fighting other people or arguing where no one's changing anybody's mind, right? And that big core, like you said, in the middle, the 80-some percent, that's where we can actually make a dent, right?
Yeah.
And I also think this, I just talked to our DNR guy last week or so, and in Michigan, it's really an attitude, a cultural attitude that people don't like the DNR because they have made some questionable calls and different regulations over the years. But at the same time, it's like, does it really matter, those type of things, or is it better to try to get along and work with those agencies toward a common goal, like stewardship? Like we can either complain about certain things or we can work with them to make it better. Where are we going to put our energies? And yeah, I think that's real important to think about. Yeah, you mentioned the education part, and I know we might as well jump to this right now if you want to. You're doing a lot. You do different speaking engagements at different events and things, I know, but you also have some new education materials out, I think, that I saw. Does that have to do with some of this education component of it, Jimmy?
Yes, it does. I try to follow a very simple formula: entertain in order to educate, in order to inspire. You can't be boring and hold a crowd. You can't have a dull television show and expect viewerships to follow you. It's just that way in life. And so, if I'm going to put out a book, or if I'm going to do a speech at a wild game dinner, or like the National Prayer Breakfast or whatever it is, a NRA, if I'm going to do a TV show or a podcast or whatever, I need to make sure that it is entertaining and that people enjoy it. But at the same time, I don't want to just get up and tell the story and entertain just for the sake of entertaining. I'm not just in the entertainment industry, but I have to have that element. And so what I do is try to entertain and use
Mm.
story, which we all live by story. We talk in story. And I will pick a story or two for my adventures, and I will use those to draw the interest of the people to whom I'm talking. And then I will begin to use that to lead into the educational side of, well, what can we do within this story to teach stewardship, to teach conservation, to teach the proper ethics of hunting and fishing, et cetera. And at the same time, also tactics that help us to be more successful at what we're doing. And then I will take that and apply it. And I've been accused of spiritualizing pretty much everything. Fantastic. Thank you. That's what I exist for. Yes, I want absolutely everything I do to be missional. And so you can make that accusation to me all day long, and I'm just going to shake your hand and pat you on the back and say thanks. Because I do believe that when we entertain with a story in order to educate, that it should lead to the inspiration of a relationship with God, because He's the one that makes it possible in the first place. And so when we look at all of that together, I believe that whatever we do to reach that 80% of the people that we can still sway, we're going to have to do it with intelligence. We're going to have to do it with proper facts, and in the right way. We can't just be, a bunch of dumb rednecks that have dead deer with their tongues hanging out, strapped on the front hood of the car, running up down the roads going, "Whoo, look what I killed." That's the worst thing in the world we could possibly do. So we've got to learn how to come at it, to actually have a hearing with these people and actually present ourselves as intelligent, and knowing what we're talking about.
I think that's super, super important. Everything you just said there. Let's turn the corner a little bit here. A lot of people would say, with your success, talking about stewardship, talking about the spotlight, right? You're in the spotlight quite a bit. A lot of people out there, I notice, are trying to get in the spotlight. Like, that's their life goal. And you're in it. You have success on a lot of different levels. A lot of people would say you're a great hunter. You've reached this certain level. What would you say to that as far as being a great hunter, and what do you feel it takes to be a great hunter?
When I get to thinking, man, I am good. Wow, I am a great hunter. Woo, look at my track record. Look at my success. I am just setting myself up for a fall. The Bible says pride comes before a fall. And have I had success? Absolutely. Have I had lots of failures? Absolutely. I think a great hunter is someone who's very passionate about what they believe in, and they go for it, and they enjoy very much what they do. But at the same time, a great hunter is one who is not always going to be successful. A great hunter is one who learns to enjoy the journey, not just the reaching of the destination. And that's been probably one of my biggest lessons, because early on, I thought that being a great hunter was always getting a kill. And that is so far from the truth. And when I began to first produce outdoor television, naturally I wanted to have a bigger spotlight. That's why you even do TV in the first place. You want to grow your platform so you can get more sponsors, so you can reach more people, so you can have more opportunities, so you can sell more books, get more speaking engagements. Of course, that's part of the deal. You want to grow, and you want to be successful, and you want to be thought of as good. We all do. There's nothing wrong with that. But if it becomes our idol, if it becomes our God, if it consumes our time and we start running over people and stepping on people and using people to get there, nah, no way. I don't want any part of that. And so I want to honor God in what I do, and I want to honor people. I think it's important that that being a good hunter is more than just what you do in the woods. It's what you do when you're talking with other people or meeting people that admire you, that come up to you at the gas pump or the station or wherever, and give them time. I hear stories about guys and ladies that are in the spotlight, and folks will approach them for an autograph or just to want to talk, and they come back and go, man, that guy or that lady is so arrogant. They wouldn't even give me the time of day. Look, I'll be the last person to leave when it comes to a speaking engagement, because I want to meet absolutely every person that takes time to come and hear me or watch my show. I want to spend time with them. I want to talk with them. My wife will be back there rolling her eyes if she's with me, saying, come on already, you've been here 3 hours talking to these people. But I just really feel like that's part of being a great hunter. That's part of being just a great person, is that you are not better than anybody else. You see everyone equally, no matter of their status in life or their skin color, no matter even what they believe religiously. I mean, that doesn't make me better than them because I think differently than them. We're all human beings, and we all need to love each other. And I think the world would be a better place if we just see each other in that way. At the same time, I do believe that I have something to offer and share with them that I've learned in life, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to do so. And most importantly, is I've got the good news of how to find salvation and have eternal life insurance. And I would be a terrible person if I didn't share that. So I'm kind of like a beggar going to another beggar and saying, "Hey, come on with me. I know where bread is." So I think that's really what it boils down to. So if I'm going to be a good hunter, it's not just about learning all the tactics and strategies and getting access to the best places and killing the biggest deer all the time. A good hunter is one who takes other people, shares those resources, helps them become successful, maybe even places them in front of yourself so that they can be successful, and be willing to celebrate their successes over your own, and also to embrace your own failures and learn from them so that maybe the next time you do it differently and have a different outcome. All of that's part of it.
Yeah, really well said there, Jimmy. What do you feel then, and we might have just answered this, but what do you feel then is kind of a stumbling block to hunters that are, pursuing that? I think most people want to be greater at something that they enjoy, right? Mm-hmm. Anybody that goes out in the woods doesn't want to fail. They don't want to, have a terrible time. They want to see deer. They want to have success, all this stuff, right? Some people take it to different levels than others, but what are some things people you feel is holding hunters back to becoming a better hunter in some of those areas that you mentioned?
I think pride is one of the biggest things that we face, and all of us naturally would like to kill a Boone and Crockett buck and a Boone and Crockett this or that, or a Pope and Young this, and then once we do, it's like, okay, I got to get another one, and then you get another one, and you get another one, and you get caught up in the competition of it. And that's why, for me personally, being a very competitive person coming out of college and playing sports and being on a championship baseball team, et cetera, I knew that I had to be really careful when I entered the outdoor world of filming to not get caught up in that. I saw people and even a friend or two that did get caught up in it. And for them, it was about how many animals can I get in the record book. The more that I'm in there, the better I am, and the more I'll be recognized as a great hunter. And so I decided early on I would never put an animal in any of the record books. I also had a double motive for that, and that was this: that people would see me shooting something on television, maybe with a bow that was by far a huge Pope and Young, record, and they're like, "Boy, I bet you put that one in the books, didn't you?" And I would always say, "Actually, I have never put an animal in any of the books. There's only one book I really, really care about." And they would say, "Well, is it Boone and Crockett?" I say, "No." "Is it Pope and Young?" "No." "Is it SCI?" "No." "Well, what are you talking about then? I didn't know there were any others." And I would always answer, "Well, it's God's record book of life." And the reaction is usually one of two things. They'll roll their eyes and go, "Oh, yeah, religious fanatic dude here." Or they'll go, "That's cool." And so to me, it gave me an opportunity for many, many, many years to promote that. And that truly is by far the most important one. Now, having said that, someone brought to my attention the fact that Teddy Roosevelt is the one that founded the Boone and Crockett Club, and I love Teddy Roosevelt. And then I realized as I studied it why he did it, because it keeps records of the conservation of our wildlife. And so now I see it a little differently. So for the first time, I believe it was last year, I actually did put an animal in the Boone and Crockett books. I shot a mountain goat that ended up being number 3 over the last 5 years, and it was up in Alaska.
Wow.
And I didn't have a clue that it was going to be that big of a record. It was just a huge mountain goat, and I shot it. But boy, it really got the press and all, and they wanted to do a lot with it. Well, they put it in there. The picture's in the most recent book that came out, and I've got it mounted here in the lodge, full body mount. They even wanted me to bring it to the big thing that they did last year and leave it for like 3 months, but I didn't want to have to get up here and climb up there and take that thing down. But I do have an animal in the books now, so I'm proud of that. I really am. I'm not proud that, hey, look out, like I killed a big, huge mountain goat. I'm proud that our hunting conservation efforts and our DNR and the Boone and Crockett Club and everybody that works on this have enabled to protect mountain goats and predict that you only need to take, like, for example, 3% a year of the population, if that, so that we're always going to have that renewable resource. And they are, guarding it very carefully. And they're doing this for a lot of things. Just recently, I shot 2 sandhill cranes, and all of my life, I was never able to hunt sandhill cranes, and I always wanted to. And I'd always heard they were ribeye in the sky and all that. Well, finally, because of the hunters' dollars and because of the hunters' conservation and the lead of the DNR, we finally have enough sandhill cranes now that I think it's something around 7 or 8 states you can hunt them in, and Tennessee is one of them. And we have a flock of about 100,000 birds that winter here. And so our DNR said, okay, we're going to do this lottery drawing, and we're going to give out about 1,000 tags. And so I drew and got 2. And out of the 1,000 tags that go out, I think about 300 to 400 of the birds get killed. That's all. And so I've done my job. And out of the last 4 years, I've drawn a total of 7 tags. I believe it's what it is. And I've killed all 7 of them, and we've eaten them, and they are phenomenal. And I am one ecstatic person to be able to hunt them. They're one of the most fun things in the world to hunt. Well, see, that wouldn't happen if we didn't have a successful conservation story led by hunters and hunters' dollars. Okay. So it's important, I think, to go ahead and keep track of things now in records. And so these record books are important. But if you get caught up in it in such a way that it becomes a pride issue for you, then don't mess with the record books. And so I think everybody has to police themselves to know, what's your mission? What's your reason that you're doing what you're doing? Is it to show everybody how great you are? Is it to kill a bigger deer than your neighbor and your buddy? Or is it just to go out and enjoy it? And when you finally get a big deer, wow, okay, that's great. Show its picture and everything, but it doesn't make you God. I remember the first buck I ever killed was a nubbin buck. And I think I was like 21 years old. And I literally capped it and scraped the hide off his little buttons and put that cap on my wall. That's how proud I was of that deer. And then I was 30 something years old when I killed my first buck with a bow and arrow. I mean, people thought, they think I've been bow hunting my whole life successfully. I killed a 4-point when I was 35 years old, and you'd have thought I killed the world record. I've got his antlers out here on the wall. Well, now at the age of 61, I've probably got 70 sets of antlers that are laying on the floor of my barn. I don't even have them in the lodge. And so now I see these things differently. But you know what? That little button and that little 4-point was just as great of a memory to me as the 222 that I killed, or whatever it is. And I really believe that as we mature as a hunter, and as we get more experience, and as we've had more time to digest how this thing really works, it's not going to be near so much about the antler size as it is maybe even the body size of the deer and the health of the deer. For me, it's the age of the deer. And then more than anything, it's about the health of the herd from which that deer came, and how to process and eat that deer and share it with others, with widows and with people that need the food, and how to introduce new people to hunting. And maybe they kill a spike and they're ecstatic, and so am I. And so that's where we really need to go with hunting, not about, hey, man, my rack's bigger than your rack. Woo, look at me.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy, we're wrapping it up here. Great talk on stewardship. I think people are going to get a lot out of that. check out his stuff. What's your website, Jimmy, where people can
We have
see
three,
your show
actually.
and everything
Yeah.
else you got going on?
So for Spiritual Outdoor Adventures, we're just now in season 22, and we start out in Croatia hunting rams, and that is on the air now, and there's on a lot of different networks and different streaming services and online. So to see that, you go to spiritualoutdooradventures.org, and you'll find a place there that will tell you all of the various networks we're on, the broadcast stations, etc. Also, we have probably 50 or 60 shows from past seasons on there that actually have biblical study guides that go with them. And you can watch a show and use it as a Bible class. That's spiritualoutdooradventures.org. We even have a documentary on there with Phil Robertson and Jace. Now, if you would like to dive into Bible teaching, that's just straight on Northfield University Bible teaching. I teach courses at Northfield University at my home church in Nashville. And these are deep dive Bible classes on textual books of the Bible. So you can go and do a study with me through Romans or First Peter or through Genesis. I've got some topical studies on there, like the biblical and historical backgrounds of Christianity and even Judaism, that kind of stuff. And we're putting a whole lot more on there. The leadership style of Nehemiah, just various courses like that. The power of prayer. So you can go, and there are study guides and books that go along with those as well. That's at jimmysites.com. So you've got two different websites there. And then for children, we believe it's very important that we are teaching our children the ways of the wild, the history of our country. I am absolutely not in any way whatsoever in support of the woke agenda, and I will say so publicly as I'm doing right now. I do not believe that we need to be rewriting history. I believe we need to be teaching history and learning from it. And I am very much value the Native Americans who were here before the Europeans came in later and treated them badly. I think that the Indian culture, as I grew up calling it, is very important, and we need to know its history. And so I am writing a series of books that the first one is The Legend of Indian Rock Cave. The second one comes out at the end of this year called Return to Indian Rock Cave. And these books are for 7 to 12-year-olds. I believe that we need to really focus on that age group within our country right now, or we're going to lose our country. And so our big initiative as we move forward is going to really have a large focus on children and on the 7 to 12-year-olds. We've already done 30 cartoons, 28 cartoons called Kids Corner Outdoors with Jimmy, or Jimmy Sites. And these teach the hunter safety laws as well as hunting and fishing ethics and safety in the outdoors. And there's color books and all kind of stuff that go with that. So we're doing our part, everything that we possibly can to make a positive difference in the lives of people spiritually, but also in the lives of people for conservation, for hunting, for fishing, getting them in the outdoors, and also staying safe when they're out there.
Well, great stuff, Jimmy. A lot there for people to check out, and thanks for coming on for just discussing. I think we really just hit the surface talking about stewardship, but thanks for coming on. In the next episode, Jimmy and I are going to talk and get more into some hunting tactics, and I'm going to ask him about a couple of stories of his, and I know he has a ton of stories, but a couple in particular. And we're going to reveal his Deer IQ test score. And this is something that everybody can take. It's on our website. It's a fun 10-question quiz, we'll call it. But we'll reveal that next episode, so stick around for that as well. All right, and now for your high IQ takeaways and challenges. Actually, there's only one this time. Find a place you can connect to become more knowledgeable about deer hunting in general. Maybe here for one by connecting to our Facebook private group and our other resources, and see about joining a local co-op or creating one with local landowners to start to take action of your local hunting area. And next time we'll be with Jimmy again as we continue talking about the legacy of great hunters, with a few of his incredible hunting adventures, including a crash of a bush plane, some of his top public land wisdom to pass on for both elk and deer, and we'll also reveal his Deer IQ score, which you can compare yours to. You won't want to miss it, and I'll see you then.